Welcome back to Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. When I'm talking about funding your business with Elijah McCoy of McCoy Brokerage Services. I'm going to start calling him the real McCoy because he's been dropping some science in the course of this show. Listen, Elijah, we talked about the importance of business planning, reality-based financial planning, really working in partnership with whoever's helping you with your funding sources, whether it's you or even when you're working with your bank, you should be working with a banker. In fact, you just made me think of something else really important, I think, relates to this conversation. One of the things that a lot of small businesses and a lot of small Black-owned businesses found out the hard way during the first round of PPP resources or stimulus checks for the pandemic was that if you didn't have a relationship with a bank already in place, you lost out in that first round of funding. And we all heard the stories of big, giant corporations getting PPP funding and the smaller businesses not getting into that first round. And the big difference wasn't so much that they were small businesses or even Black-owned businesses, is that major corporations and even some small businesses had banking relationships, and so many small businesses did not. And as a result, you couldn't even get into the application process fast enough to get to that first round of money because you didn't have an already established banking relationship. How important is it? And I'll expand the question beyond just banking, whether it's a lender, whether it's somebody like you who's a commercial financing expert, whether it's investors, to cultivate relationships before you need the money. So that when something happens, you're not like, you already have established relationships that help you gain access to funding. How important is that?
It's critical. You do not want to be what I call a needle in the haystack borrower. Not want to be a needle in the haystack borrower. Like the individuals that didn't have a relationship with the banks during PPP, during the PPP time, during the pandemic, they were lost. Like their applications were just stuck in Nowheresville. That's what I call it. So, but those that had relationships with banks, call the loan officers they'll make a phone call. Loan officers do all the paperwork. Okay, sign here, sign there, boom, done. So during the pandemic, I didn't do a bunch, but during the pandemic, I helped process over about 3.5 million in PPP applications for my existing customers. My existing customers, didn't charge them a dime, just wanted to let them know, hey, I'm here to help you. And they returned the favor. Since then, they've sent me more business because they remembered that I was there. Didn't charge them anything, but I was there to help them throughout the process.
Yeah, I mean, that's the word. I mean, on the one hand, you say, well, 3 million is not that much, but it was sure wasn't when it's needed.
Right.
It's all the money in the world.
It is.
And the fact that you came through for them, and I really wanted to drive home this lesson to those who are listening. Even if you're just thinking about starting a business, now's the time to cultivate relationships with people like Elijah McCoy. If you got to look, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that they're banking with somebody, they just never talk to anybody there. They don't, it's like you got money there, you've been banking there for 20 years, but like you said, you're a needle in the haystack. Nobody knows your name, you're an account number, and they're gladly take your business, but they're not going to know who you are to be able to do anything for you.
That's exactly right.
Our late founder of Black Enterprise, the late Earl Graves Sr., used to say that whoever has the best relationships in business wins in business. That business is personal, and again, I just thought that really came through during those difficult first months of businesses trying to figure out what to do when the economy shut down. And again, if you had a relationship, you had a fighting chance. If you didn't have a relationship, if you were a needle in the haystack, it was rough. It was rough.
Absolutely.
So talk to me about the things that you're seeing now. We're seeing companies that survived the pandemic, now trying to reposition themselves. You got a whole wave of new businesses that started during the pandemic, and in some ways benefited from the pandemic because it opened up new opportunities. Right. What are you seeing now in terms of the kinds of things your clients are facing in terms of getting funding, whether it's your clients or you're seeing in general that you think our audience should pay attention to?
What I'm seeing now is that, and this I love, people are not as scared as they once were. Like scared to take a chance, and okay, still work on your job, but on the side, in your spare time or during the weekend, pursue something that you love. and people are now opening up even more businesses because they realized during the pandemic, Mr. Employer wasn't really there for me like that. I had to fend for my own, and so they're getting a wake up call, if you will, to get out there and tap into things that they always wanted to do, that they never actually put the foot forward to do. So I think people naturally, due to the pandemic, are getting more faith, and that's a good thing because I'm getting people every day, Alfred. They want to open up a business. They want to open up a law firm. They want to open up a medical practice. Then I'll ask the question, have you ever owned one before? Nope, but now I think it's time. I love to hear that because when they tell me that, they're working with the right guy. I've closed over 390 million in loans.
Wow.
Thanks to God himself. It's not me. I'm just anointed to do what I do. So, and if a new entrepreneur is coming to me, I'm the right person to help them out because I have a lot of connections with banks, over 2,000 lending institutions nationwide.
Man, that's a powerful message. And again, I want to even just say what you just said, say it again. Often, maybe most of the time, we find our faith in the difficult times. We find, like you said, people have business ideas for decades, and they were comfortable though. They're like, "Oh, but I'm good. I'll do it next year. I'll do it later." And then, like you said, employers weren't there. Things that we thought we could count on just weren't there for some people for 2 years, certainly for at least 6 or 7 months. And it forced us, and I'm speaking for myself as well, because I did some things that I could have been doing all along that I wasn't doing. That during the pandemic, I was like, "Oh, I need to do this," and it's like, "Oh, I could have been doing this all along. Why wasn't I doing it before?" But your message about faith being triggered, being inspired, being activated, I guess that's what I'm looking for, activated by difficult times. And I'm seeing the same trend that you are. More people starting businesses. The Black Enterprise Entrepreneur Summit is returned as an in-person event in Philadelphia this year in May. In the number of people I'm meeting who said, "I had this idea and I sat on it, but now I'm just going for it. I'm going for it." And you're seeing a lot of great startups, particularly on Black women-owned businesses, which is still the fastest growing cohort of small business owners. But yeah, man, you're absolutely right about that. That said, how valuable is it that you can temper that enthusiasm for going for it with expertise? Because again, it's not as easy as it looks.
Right.
There's going to be tough times, dark days, no matter how great the idea is, no matter how much people want the product or service, it's easier said than done. How important is it to have a real expert to help kind of guide that scenario? And like you said, to be there when, I wish I hadn't quit my job, or why did I start this business? Everybody has those days like, why did I start this business? I want to be mad at the boss, but the boss is me.
Right, exactly. It's very important. You need to have a direct connection with some lending institution or a commercial mortgage broker like myself. Doesn't have to be me. It could be somebody that's just as experienced or even more experienced than I am, because it's always somebody out there better. That's how I think. But if they do come to me, I know the ropes. I know what it takes to get the job done. And I'm going
to say for you, they're not better than you. They're just a better fit.
There you go.
No, tell me again. Your shoes aren't better than mine. Your shoes just fit you better. So
that's right. I love that.
Yeah, because we don't bring anybody but the best on Be Lifted Up Radio. Just like y'all said. I'm just telling y'all, we ain't just pick Elijah off of a tree. So listen, we got one more segment, Elijah. I'm really enjoying this conversation with you. I know you're blessing people, people who are existing business owners, as well as aspiring entrepreneurs. And there are people who may not be entrepreneurs today, but 5 years from now, when it's time, they'll remember this conversation, go back and listen to the video on YouTube or whatever. But I really want to kind of get your closing thoughts about what it means to finance a business, why this mission and ministry is important to you. Sometimes your work is not your ministry, but in this case, I feel like it is for you. And give some closing tips to our audience who really want to understand what they should be doing about funding a business. Sounds good?
Sounds good.
All right. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. We'll be back with Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life.